Each time Noah presented the breakup agreement for the 19th round, I consented. The woman he was infatuated with was demanding an official status and couldn't wait any longer, and neither could I. I was expecting a child that wasn't his. After I signed the document, I snapped a picture and forwarded it to Noah, confirming my signature. "Will your assistant collect it?" I asked. 20 minutes went by in silence. Noah's messaging app remained completely quiet. I contemplated hiring a courier until I noticed Noah standing at the doorway, slightly breathless. He had come in person. It made sense. His new flame had been making waves for half a year, insisting on a formal role. Clearly, he was in a rush. "What new scheme are you attempting?" I questioned. "I've provided everything you could possibly want." His voice was icy, tinged with impatience. 3 years earlier, Noah had proposed marriage. Since then, I had been his wife in name, supporting him through his rise from nothing to success. Yet, over the past 6 months, he had been scheming ways to dispose of me to make space for his new obsession. He had revised the property settlement agreement 19 times before, and each version had dissatisfied me. This time, I signed it without hesitation, and now he was acting suspicious. I laughed and handed him the document. His eyes narrowed as he examined my signature, his expression darkening. "Lily, did you really agree to this?" I gave him a puzzled look. He often complained that my petty jealousy annoyed him the most. Now, I wasn't making a scene. I was simply taking the money and leaving as he desired. Yet, he seemed even more displeased. Didn't he want to see me in tears, begging him to stay? I smiled and said, "Isn't this great? You can openly marry Sophie now, and I can start planning my own life." This agreement covered everything: the house, car, company shares. He left nothing out. I accepted everything. After all, I had stood by his side through the years when he was struggling. Who willingly allows their hard work to benefit someone else? Now, with what I had earned and what he was offering, I could live comfortably for the rest of my life, even if I traveled the world. Love might be gone, but financial security remained. Noah seemed to hear my words, his expression growing conflicted as if he wanted to say something but held back. Just then, a gentle, sweet voice interrupted us. "Lily, thank you for letting us be together." It was Sophie, Noah's prized possession. She had risen from humble beginnings, gaining entry into the highly competitive Galaxy Group and becoming Noah's secretary in the CEO's office within 3 months. She had worked tirelessly to win Noah over. Noah had claimed she was pure and kind, always worried that I would mistreat her. But what kind of innocent person would engage with a married man and send pictures to his wife? Initially, I couldn't believe it. I cried, caused a scene, and even exposed them online in anger. The next day, there was no trace of Sophie. Noah always handled things meticulously. Ironically, he used the same tactics on me. Exhausted from the constant turmoil, I looked at the two of them and smiled faintly, not wanting to discuss it further. "You have the agreement? Aren't you leaving?" I ordered her to leave. The villa was in my name, and since Noah had been seeing Sophie regularly, he rarely returned. If they stayed longer, I'd have to clean the entire house. Noah's expression darkened. "Lily, trying to play hard to get won't work. Since you dared to sign, don't regret it." He grabbed Sophie and walked out. "Wait!" I called after him. He turned, looking as if he expected me to relent, but I reminded him, "Don't forget to transfer the money and property to my name soon." His face went blank for a moment before he clenched his teeth. "You're in a hurry?" Of course I was. I was pregnant with a child that wasn't his. The longer I delayed ending things with him, the worse it would get. I had a prenatal appointment. Unexpectedly, I encountered Noah and Sophie at the hospital. He was gently holding her hand, listening patiently to her chatter, his gaze affectionate. They seemed inseparable, leaving no room for a third person. Memories flooded back. Once he had cherished me like that. It had been a long time since he looked at me that way. Only during my miscarriage when I was 4 months pregnant. That was when he had his first affair. Sophie was bold, demanding her place with no hesitation. I called her shameless, and she retorted that I was the unloving one, the mistress. Hurt, she pushed me so hard that I lost the baby. Covered in blood, I was rushed into surgery. When I awoke, the first thing I saw was Noah's remorseful face. His eyes filled with guilt as he clutched my hand and wept. "I'm sorry, Lily. I'm a bastard. Hit me if you must." I slapped him hard. He didn't react defensively, just endured the blows. When I couldn't keep striking him, he reluctantly pleaded, "Just this once, Lily. Give me a chance to make it up to you. We can have children again." He ended things with Sophie, becoming a caring partner again, but it lasted only 6 months. New women soon surrounded him, each youthful face quickly replaced until Sophie had been with him the longest. Running into them at the obstetrics department was awkward, so I turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Sophie's voice stopped me. "Lily, fancy seeing you here." She clung to Noah like a prized accessory, her cheeks flushed and looking somewhat shy. "I'm here for a doctor's appointment. I'm pregnant." I watched her act expressionless. Noah noticed the registration slip in my hand and frowned. "What are you seeing the doctor for?" I gave a cold smile. "Mr. Noah, it's best not to pry into your ex-wife's privacy in front of your new lover." He seemed irritated and actually pushed Sophie aside, grabbing my wrist. "Lily, I'm your man. Why are you suddenly at the gynecology department? I have the right to know." I stared at him, my tone dripping with mockery. "Your man? Mr. Noah, are you sure? Although we had a wedding in the marriage registration system, I've always been single." Noah hesitated, as if remembering something, his eyes darkening. "Yes, that wedding was so romantic and grand back then. To outsiders, I was your only husband. Over the years, our businesses and equity were intertwined. But in reality, we had never actually registered the marriage. Whenever I urged him to get the certificate, he was always busy with meetings or traveling abroad. His time was so valuable that he couldn't spare half an hour in 3 years to obtain a marriage certificate with me. When we split, we fought over money and power distribution, making a public scene. My wrist hurt from his grip, but he wouldn't let go. Fortunately, soon after, the receptionist announced my name. "Patient Lily, please proceed to diagnosis room number 5. Only then did Noah reluctantly release my hand. I quickly walked past him and Sophie into the room and locked the door, indifferent to Noah's dark expression. The doctor carefully reviewed my test results, gave some instructions, and asked me to bring the child's father next time. "He's dead." The doctor's words hit me like a lightning bolt. He looked up with sympathetic eyes, switching to a consoling tone and advising me to take care and mourn properly. I complied, putting on a sorrowful expression. Perhaps because it was early in the pregnancy, I felt drowsy and slept deeply afterward. I had many dreams. In one, I had just graduated college, and Noah's family went bankrupt, leaving him homeless. We moved into a small rented apartment where he held me, wrapped me in his micolette, and rested against my chest. "Lily, when I have money, I won't let you suffer anymore. I'll hire people to cook, wash clothes, and fold blankets for you," he said, his heartbeat booming. My face reddened from his sweet words, naively believing that love could conquer all. Eventually, he did make a comeback, achieving fame and success, but more people started appearing around him, those elusive loves of his. In the final dream, everything was in chaos, broken porcelain at my feet as I cried and broke down. He watched me spiral, unmoved, saying indifferently, "Lily, you look so ugly doing this." At that moment, I saw him. The man I had deeply loved during our youth now seemed rotten. When I awoke, dusk had fallen. A sudden voice startled me. "I heard you're carrying my child and spreading rumors that I'm dead." I jolted, turning toward the voice. By the window stood a Mappa, moonlight casting a silver glow on his dark suit. In the darkness, he was hard to notice if he hadn't spoken. "Michael, did you want to scare someone?" I asked, startled. "You're too much," Michael laughed, amused by my reaction. He approached the bed and pulled me into his arms. His warm body pressed against me as his hand gently stroked my lower back. "Who's really been too much here, Lily? First you sleep with me and run away, and now you want to flee with my child too?" Michael had guessed correctly. My plan was to have the child and settle in a small town, away from both Noah and Michael. 3 months ago on my birthday, Noah had suggested spending it together one last time before we split, to ensure good luck and a clean break. He had made an early reservation at a restaurant with a window seat overlooking the night scenery. He picked me up as if nothing had changed between us, presented a cake, and lit the candles himself. "Make a wish," he urged. Reluctantly, I closed my eyes and silently wished. When I opened them, the seat across from me was empty. Noah had vanished. I waited for a long time, but he never returned. A server informed me that Noah had received a phone call and left, asking me to finish my meal and leave, offering to cover all expenses. I watched the candles burn down, the frosting collapsing, and the words "Happy Birthday" turning into smudged red blotches. Eventually, I laughed mockingly. After leaving the restaurant, I took a taxi to the harbor. When we were broke, Noah often took me there, saying that even if we couldn't travel, we could enjoy the sea breeze. The sea remained unchanged, but he had long since changed. I wandered aimlessly until someone nearby exclaimed, "Oh my God, this is so romantic." Following their gaze, I saw the night sky over the sea filled with countless drones forming romantic cursive words. "Sophie, I love you." Moments later, fireworks exploded in the sky, dazzling and beautiful. People around me sighed, "Wow, which wealthy heir is confessing his love now?" "Ah, it's just another day for us ordinary folks," I thought, almost impulsively opening Twitter. Sure enough, Sophie had posted proudly, "True love is timeless. Whenever I say I miss him, he confesses his love." The picture showed the drone confession. When someone's heart is completely broken, they might act irrationally. I bought a lot of alcohol to drown my sorrows. By the sea, Noah and Sophie were together, surrounded by oblivious passers-by who didn't notice me at all. I watched them for a long time, until I realized I was surrounded by empty bottles, and my vision began to blur. Knowing it was dangerous to keep drinking, I stood up and staggered away. Escaping the noisy port was difficult. As I walked down the road, I bumped into someone carefully holding my hand to steady me. I looked up and saw it was Michael, a prominent Wall Street figure and heir to the Lake Group. Through business investments, I had dealings with him. About 2/3 of my wealth stemmed from his support. He was the opposite of Noah, rarely seen with women. People joked he might be gay, and he never denied it. "Lily," he held me up, frowning. "Why did you drink so much?" He smelled nice, clean, unlike Noah, who always carried Sophie's perfume. "Michael, they say you like men. Is that true?" I asked unexpectedly. My tongue felt numb from the alcohol. Michael was initially stunned, then sighed helplessly as he carefully placed me into his Rolls Royce. Maybe I just found him attractive. Perhaps the alcohol had dulled my judgment, or maybe I was trying to retaliate against Noah. I quietly leaned closer to Michael and kissed his cheek. He looked at me, shocked. His pupils dilated slightly, his pale skin tinged with pink. The next second, I boldly straddled him. "Michael, do you want to try something with me?" My lips brushed his earlobe, feeling soft, so I kissed it. His ear felt warm. He spoke above me, his voice hoarse. "Lily, get a grip." I laughed. "I'm sober. I know you like young and pretty women. You can always leave a woman when you're tired of her." Feeling the heat, I instinctively wanted to move to a cooler place. He frowned, his eyes dark and unfocused. I leaned back to kiss him again. This time, he didn't resist. His lips were cool, with a fresh mint scent. Very pleasant. I kissed him passionately, almost suffocating. He held my head with one hand and my waist with the other, urging me to continue. I murmured. The car's partition rose, isolating us in a private space. He finally let go, his voice huskier than before. "Lily, I don't like men, and I don't like young ones." His reaction was delayed. We had already kissed, so why say this now? I wasn't drunk enough to forget everything, but my head was fuzzy. Before I could think clearly, Michael started the car. Soon we arrived at our destination. Michael lifted me from the back seat, carried me through the villa's living room, quickly went upstairs to the bedroom, and gently placed me on the bed. Standing above me, he looked down. My eyes were fixed on his lips, moist with steam, slightly swollen and red. I glanced down at his shirt, the top 2 buttons undone, collarbones exposed. He looked like a seductive siren. He curved his lips, guiding my hand under his shirt. "Lily, do you want it?" Yes. Satisfied, Michael leaned down to kiss my lips deeply and intensely, as if asserting his strong possessiveness. His fervent kisses moved downward. "Lily, do you like it?" My face felt like it could burn. I could only cling tightly to Michael. Initially, I bit my lips to avoid answering, But eventually, I gave in, burying my face in his neck and whimpering, "Yes, I like it." He kissed me with satisfaction. Eventually, I drifted into a deep sleep in his embrace. The next morning, he was already gone. I understood his departure meant he was someone who avoided trouble. Good, I thought. I'd do the same. After he left, I decided to act as if nothing had happened, blacklisting him to keep things clean and avoid awkwardness. In business, I let my subordinates handle matters professionally. I hadn't seen Michael until a few days ago when I realized my period was late. That's when I remembered I hadn't used any contraceptives after that night. I secretly bought a pregnancy test. 5 in a row were positive. I was perplexed. After my previous miscarriage, the doctor had said it would be difficult to conceive again. How did Michael manage so easily? I was confused. Logically, Michael had the right to know, but I recalled his attitude that day and wasn't sure. Planning to break up with Noah quickly and secure a future for myself and the baby, I didn't mention anything. Unfortunately, before I could, Michael found me. "Lily, why did you block me?" His lips were close to my ear, his voice cool, with warm breath. "You didn't regret sleeping with me, did you?" His demeanor stunned me. I hadn't expected him to care so much about me blocking him. To avoid further misunderstandings, I decided to clarify things. "Michael, we're all adults here. I initiated that night, so I understand and accept the consequences. You found out at the hospital, so you know I'm definitely keeping the baby. I have the money to take care of the child myself without troubling you. If you're really worried, we can sign a confidentiality agreement." Michael suddenly froze while kissing my earlobe, his voice dropping even lower. "You're going to do it alone. What if the child asks about their dad? And what if they want to see a picture of him?" I had already considered this. I'll tell the child their dad is dead. We can use AI to create photos. Let's say he died in a car accident. If you're not happy with that, you can come up with a more dignified death for yourself. Of course, if you want to see the child later, that's fine. You can call yourself Uncle. Michael frowned initially, but then laughed angrily. "Call me Uncle? Lily, what do you take me for?" I was stunned, unable to grasp his meaning. Had I even thought about his future? Despite planning for him, he still wasn't satisfied. "Michael, I just don't want to trouble you too much. After all, you left decisively that day." As I spoke, I watched Michael's facial expressions, considering other possibilities. Could he have discovered my pregnancy and changed his mind, wanting to fight for custody? No. Michael took several deep breaths before speaking again, somewhat helplessly. "I never thought you were a trouble." I was slightly taken aback, another absurd thought creeping in. Michael stared at me seriously, explaining, "That day, there was a problem with my project's French division. I had to personally handle it. I left you a note asking you to wait for me to come back." A note? I really didn't see anything. Why would he leave a note in this high-tech age? Besides, I was too embarrassed to stay and just wanted to leave quickly. "Who would check for notes?" Michael continued, clearly upset. "When I tried to contact you later, I found out you had blocked me on all channels. Lily, do you see me as someone shameful?" I gave an awkward laugh. "That's a bit much, but we can't possibly get married just because we slept together once, right?" He looked down and asked, "Why not?" I widened my eyes in disbelief. "Are you serious, Michael? Do you really like kids that much?" Michael's gaze was incredibly deep as he looked at me for a long time before lazily replying in a low voice, "Let's just say I like kids." Of course, I didn't agree to marry Michael. It was too crazy. I had moved from loving Noah deeply to being fed up with him. Our long entanglement hadn't ended well, and I wasn't about to jump hastily into another relationship trap. Michael didn't push. He just watched me re-add his contact information. He also insisted that I inform him before my next prenatal checkup. I frowned. Is that really necessary? I wasn't sure if it was my imagination, but I thought I sensed a gritted teeth tone in his smile. "Didn't you say I like kids? If I like kids, how could I let you go for a prenatal checkup alone?" "All right then." I respected his rights as the biological father. Besides, he was instrumental in my business success, so I had to show at least some respect. After that, Michael began caring about my diet and clothing, even purchasing baby supplies. Once, during a business trip to Europe, he personally brought back a custom-made crib from a master craftsman, filled with various diapers, formulas, and baby creams. He seemed genuinely excited about the baby's arrival. Over time, I got used to his attentions. Half a month later, at an auction, Michael and I entered together and saw Noah. Sophie was clinging to Noah with a smug expression. Long time no see, but Noah froze when he saw me with Michael. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but Sophie didn't give him the chance. "Honey, I'm a bit tired. Can you take me over there to sit?" As they left, she turned and gave me a mocking look, which I ignored. Due to my pregnancy, I had to distance myself from such harmful individuals. The items up for auction were mostly mediocre, and I wasn't particularly interested until I laid eyes on a necklace. It was a stunning piece I had admired for years, but never succeeded in purchasing. The starting bid was $800,000, so I made the first move with my paddle. Sophie quickly followed, consistently outbidding me. $1 million, then $1.5 million. Eventually, Noah took over, raising the paddle to $3 million. He knew I had desired that necklace for a long time and wanted to take it from me to gift it to Sophie. Catching their glance, I met Sophie's self-satisfied eyes. Realizing Sophie might not even truly appreciate the necklace, she just wanted to prevent me from owning it. With Noah's third bid at $3 million, the auction concluded without me raising my paddle again. Michael squeezed my hand, intending to increase the bid by $500. I swiftly grabbed his hand to halt him. "5 what? Are you out of your mind?" He looked somewhat innocent. $5 million isn't too high if you truly love the necklace. I laughed dismissively. How is it not expensive? You've never experienced poverty, which is why you don't understand that $5 million is exorbitant. When you're struggling, you might fight for $500, let alone $5 million. Michael, who has never had to worry about money, wouldn't grasp that logic. I shook my head. Don't worry about it. I hate losing money. Noah's $3 million surpasses the necklace's real worth. If he wants to be foolish, let him. The property division agreement is already signed by Noah, so any money he spends now comes from his own share. $3 million isn't a fortune, but it adds up over time. I'd be delighted if he continues to deplete his wealth. $3 million, third call, sold. The auctioneer's gavel struck, finalizing everything. Afterward, attendees began to exit in a flow. Sophie made a deliberate approach towards me, flaunting the necklace immediately. "Lily, are you upset? It's all Noah's fault. He saw I liked it and didn't hesitate. I can lend it to you if you want to see it." Noah stood silently beside her, observing the scene unfold. Indeed, he had spoiled Sophie, allowing her to flaunt the necklace before me repeatedly. I smirked. "No need. I don't care for it that much. If you like it, keep it. Surely nothing you admire is that remarkable." I cast a meaningful look at Noah beside her. His face darkened with irritation. "Lily, what's wrong? It's just a necklace. Do you really need to be so harsh about it? It's no big deal. I'll buy you another one." I lifted my gaze and stared at him firmly. "No need. Like you said, it's just a necklace. I don't need it." Noah seemed taken aback. Then realization struck him. I was a jewelry designer. His first fortune stemmed from me selling my design rights, earning him his initial $1 million. Back then, he had held me with red eyes, promising to buy me lavish jewelry one day. In reality, he only gifted me an ordinary ring. I was his girlfriend for 4 years and Mrs. Noah for 3. He squandered 7 of my most treasured years with a mere diamond. A promise might feel sincere when made, but sincerity can fade swiftly. As love ends, it distances itself by mountains and roads, all depending on one's conscience. Now he had his company, and I had my career. My jewelry brand was globally renowned. Whatever I desired, I could afford myself. I no longer needed him. Seemingly recalling the past, Noah appeared somewhat dazed. When he looked back at me, his eyes were filled with guilt and nostalgia. At that moment, Michael's tall figure suddenly intervened, completely diverting Noah's attention away from me. In a lazy yet mocking tone, he said, "Mr. Noah, it's been years and your taste has changed. You prefer this kind of girl now?" With that, Michael glanced casually at Sophie. Sophie barely concealed her fury, her entire face contorted with anger. I lost interest in appearances. "Michael, let's go." Calling his name in public seemed to amuse Michael. He smiled, and I thought the confrontation was over, expecting some peace. However, Noah suddenly began to regret everything. I habitually silenced my phone when I slept, so that day when I woke up, my screen was flooded with over 30 missed calls and 99 messages, all from Noah. "Lily, let's talk. I'm coming over. Nobody's home. Where are you? Were you checking at the OB/GYN last time? Are you pregnant? If you are, I won't agree to the divorce. If you don't answer, I'll wait outside your door. Lily, why weren't you home all night? Why did you dismiss the servants?" I responded coldly, because I moved out a long time ago. Living in a house filled with his remnants made me uneasy, so I sold it. When Michael discovered, he, as a father, generously offered a private island villa and hired personal doctors and caregivers. The island boasted a beautiful environment and a perfect climate, ideal for a peaceful pregnancy. I couldn't refuse. Anyone would be foolish to decline such an offer. Since Michael wanted to embrace his rights as a father, he was naturally willing to spend. It was a fair exchange. Michael and I had come to understand this unspoken rule. As for Noah, according to the agreement, a substantial amount of property still hadn't been transferred to me. Now he wanted to backtrack? Not happening. I promptly called him back. Noah's voice sounded weary and slightly hoarse. "Lily, I asked the former servants. They said they saw you taking pregnancy-related medication. If that's true, maybe we shouldn't split." I lost my patience. When you're down, even taking a pill is monitored by nosy servants. Fortunately, I always knew you couldn't hide the truth forever, so I was mentally prepared. Before Noah could continue, I interrupted him bluntly. "Yes, I'm pregnant, but Noah, who claims the child is yours?" The other end remained silent for an agonizingly long time. I could almost hear Noah's rapid breathing. Finally, he responded coldly, "Lily, what do you mean?" When Noah finally found me, I was playing with Buddy, a small yellow dog Michael had adopted so I wouldn't feel lonely. He was gentle and affectionate, loving to lie by my feet and bask in the sun. Seeing me, Noah was stunned. "So you really are here. If I'm not mistaken, this property should be under the He family name." He stared at my belly as if trying to pierce through me. "When exactly?" I tilted my head and smiled. "Remember my birthday? The night you left halfway to confess to Sophie with that drone?" Noah's eyes widened in disbelief. "Lily, we hadn't even broken up and you were already cheating on me." To him, it felt like I had committed a wrongdoing, as if I was the one to blame. I couldn't help but laugh mockingly and retorted, "And all these years you kept changing lovers. When you got Sophie pregnant, did you ever think of me?" Unable to justify himself, he stood there for a long time before reluctantly saying, "Lily, abort the child. Let's not fight anymore. We'll go to the registry office and get married. Let's have a good life together, okay?" I laughed out loud, staring at him without blinking. "Abort? Do you even think that's possible? I've had a miscarriage before. The doctor said it would be hard for me to have children again. Do you remember why I had that miscarriage? What right do you have to decide the fate of my child?" He staggered, pain flashing in his eyes. "Fine then. Have the baby. When you're better, we'll have our own child, okay?" It felt like the funniest joke I'd ever heard. I couldn't help but look at him as if he were insane. "Do you even hear yourself?" His eyes were red as he made one last attempt. "Lily, for you, I'll accept this child." At that moment, a low chuckle came from nearby. It was Michael. He unbuttoned the top of his shirt and spoke lazily yet mockingly. "Want my child to call you Dad? Are you worthy?" The atmosphere immediately grew tense. When Noah saw Michael, it was as if he had been provoked, charging at him furiously. "Michael, it's you!" Unfortunately, Noah couldn't lay a finger on Michael before the villa's bodyguards restrained him. He probably forgot whose house this was. Noah's eyes were bloodshot as he struggled to break free from the guards to confront Michael. But reality was harsh. With a swift motion, the guards threw him to the floor, and Michael simply sat on the sofa, legs crossed, looking at him expressionlessly, his face icy. "Are you leaving on your own, or do I have to have you removed?" I was somewhat surprised. Even though Michael was usually composed, known for his calm demeanor, especially when dealing with business rivals, I had never seen him so angry. Since Noah came alone, there was nothing Michael could do, no matter how reluctant Noah was. Looking defeated, Noah got to his feet and handed me a box. I didn't open it. The blue velvet box. I could guess its contents. It was the necklace Sophie had taken, the one I had desired for so long. He bowed his head and said, "Lily, on the day of the auction, I didn't really want to take away what you liked. I just wanted to make you jealous, to make you give in a little. I've gotten the necklace back for you. I'll make Sophie get rid of the child. Don't you still like this necklace? Can we get back together, please?" Yes, I used to like it so much. He knew that, but he still helped Sophie use it to humiliate me. He also knew that every time I cried and argued, it tore me apart. Yet he kept hurting me repeatedly. I responded softly, "I don't like it anymore. Neither the necklace nor you." Noah's face turned pale. "Lily, don't be stubborn, okay? Are you really willing to leave me up?" It was so ironic. He was the one who hurt me the most back then, and now he acted like the victim. I looked into his slightly reddened eyes, pulled my clothes from his grasp, and said seriously, "Noah, you destroyed everything with your own hands. If we're breaking up, let's do it completely. Don't make me look down on you." 3 days later, Noah and I finalized the property settlement at the notary office. Noah looked exceptionally haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, clearly not having slept well. But his well-being no longer mattered to me. As we parted ways, he seemed to have something to say. But before he could, Sophie appeared. Her usual gentle demeanor was gone, replaced with anger and resentment. "Noah, she already has someone else's child. Why give her so much?" I thought it was just a breakup settlement, but how could he even transfer that 80 million villa to her? Did he even consider me and our baby? I frowned slightly. Sophie might not realize that what Noah gave me wasn't just a breakup settlement. Every deal he made, every penny he earned included my share. Without me, he wouldn't have what he has today. I received what I deserved. Besides, Sophie was too impatient. Noah's love was intense but fleeting. Her image as a gentle wife deteriorated too quickly, which was terrible. "Lily, don't even think about taking advantage!" Sophie screamed, rushing towards me without hesitation. "Enough!" Noah shouted loudly, stopping her. "Have you had enough? Stop embarrassing yourself here!" Sophie's body stiffened from his yell, her eyes instantly turning red. She threw a fake handbag viciously at Noah. "Embarrassing? How can you yell at me? You broke up with her, didn't you? Why are you still protecting her?" More and more onlookers gathered around. Noah's expression grew increasingly annoyed until he finally exploded. "Even if I don't marry Lily, I'll never marry you." Sophie was stunned by his outburst. The next second, she realized what had happened and chased after him in a panic, trying to grab his hand. But Noah looked indifferent, pushing her away forcefully. "Stay away from me!" That's when the accident occurred. Sophie always loved dressing up. Even while pregnant, she insisted on wearing delicate sheepskin high heels, using them to showcase Noah's love for her. As a result, Noah's shove made her lose her footing, causing her to tumble down the steps multiple times. She landed on the ground, clutching her stomach, her face pale as she cried out in pain. "My baby, Noah, my stomach hurts so much. Help!" Seeing this, Noah panicked, looking extremely distressed. About 4 or 5 seconds later, blood began to trickle down Sophie's legs. My heart quivered at the sight. Before our child, Noah and I would have been lost in the same way. Is it fate? For someone unfaithful and unloving, even family ties are destined to be shallow. Or perhaps the baby senses that its father doesn't love it while in the womb, so it leaves in sadness. Even though the human world is beautiful, it chooses not to come again. Because of Sophie's incident, word about Michael and me eventually reached the family. The next day, Michael's grandfather ordered him to return to the old house. He specifically mentioned wanting to see me. During the car ride, I couldn't help but feel nervous. Michael reassured me, saying his grandpa was easy to talk to. I trusted him. But from the moment we entered, the old man's brows never relaxed. Despite being 80 and needing a cane to walk, his face exuded authority and a natural aura of superiority. Squinting his eyes, he commanded in an unwavering tone, "Kneel." His authoritative voice echoed throughout the hall. Michael didn't hesitate for a second, removing his suit micolette and kneeling immediately. I trembled, following behind him. Do I also have to kneel? My mind was filled with questions. Then Michael's grandpa noticed me, and his demeanor completely changed. Smiling kindly, he walked towards me. "Girl, don't be nervous. Sit down. Grandpa isn't a bad person. Grandpa just wants to help teach that naughty grandson of mine a lesson." You watch from the sofa. I was completely stunned as Michael's housekeeper mother helped me sit down. When my eyes met Michael's, he slightly smiled, signaling me not to mind. It seemed he was accustomed to kneeling. Can he handle it? I wondered, but I had overestimated him. The next second, he said, "Grandpa, Lily is sitting, so I shouldn't have to kneel, right? It would have been better if he had said nothing." Michael's grandpa exploded immediately. In an instant, he picked up the cane and struck Michael's back mercilessly. "You brat! How dare you sass me? Have you forgotten the family rules? So many matches were arranged for you, but you refused all of them. And now you've compromised a decent girl. Disgraceful!" As he scolded, the old man swung the cane even harder. I was shocked by the scene. What era is this? Do they still enforce family rules? Michael, a dominating figure outside, obediently knelt and got beaten at home. I tried to plead, Michael's grandpa, it's not Michael's fault. I was drunk, and Before I could finish, Michael's grandpa interrupted. "Don't plead for him. You were drunk, but what about him? If he didn't have bad thoughts, could this have happened? It's clearly this brat taking advantage of you. Watch me teach him a lesson." Michael's grandpa was serious as he continued to beat Michael. Seeing 10 streaks on Michael's white shirt already showing signs of blood, I quickly stepped in to stop the cane. No more beating. Michael's grandpa wasn't willing to relent, trying to wrestle the cane back. In the tussle, Michael suddenly stood up from his obedient kneel, shielding me behind him. "Grandpa, you can beat me, but don't push Lily. She's pregnant." Michael's grandpa's hand froze in midair upon hearing this. After a few moments of confusion, a gleam of joy appeared in his eyes. "Pregnant? Are you saying I'm going to have a great-grandchild?" Michael hesitated. "You called me back for a beating, yet you didn't know she's pregnant?" Michael's grandpa shook his head in puzzlement. So, he only had a vague idea and didn't know I was already carrying Michael's child. I came to Michael's home this time fully prepared to discuss the custody of the child. Who would have thought the old man, after hearing the whole story, would directly ask me when I was going to marry Michael? "Old man, aren't you changing your stance too quickly?" I had to explain. "Sorry, Michael's grandpa, I don't have any plans to get married at the moment." Michael's grandpa went silent for a moment before looking at Michael with a disappointed expression. "You little rascal. What are you doing? Why haven't you even chased your wife yet?" He said this without avoiding me at all. I awkwardly turned my head away, but then I heard Michael's amused voice beside my ear. "Yeah, I guess I'm too dumb, but I'm already trying. I'll work harder." That night, Michael's grandpa arranged for us to stay in the old house. He even purposely mentioned that there weren't enough rooms, pushing us into sharing a bedroom. The old man's intentions were clear. The bedroom featured a black and white minimalist decor. It was obviously Michael's private room. Michael removed his blood-stained shirt and asked me to help him apply some ointment. His fair skin made the bruises and wounds stand out even more. I took the ointment and carefully applied it, my fingertips brushing against the skin of his back. His body temperature felt slightly warm. Michael suddenly spoke in a hoarse voice. "Grandpa's always hoping I'll get married. He's a bit overenthusiastic." "Don't take it to heart," I softly mumbled in understanding. "Old folks always long for a house full of children and grandchildren." After applying the ointment, I let out a long breath and casually glanced around the room. Suddenly, a pair of cufflinks on the cabinet caught my eye. Why do they look so familiar? As if possessed, I walked over and picked them up, shockingly asking, "Michael, how did you get these cufflinks?" Michael looked at the cufflinks, then shifted his gaze to my face. After a few seconds of silence, he lowered his eyelashes slightly. "You gave them to me." I looked at him incredulously. "How's that possible? I sold these cufflinks 8 years ago." Michael held the cufflinks, took a deep breath, and seemed to steel himself before explaining, 8 years ago, a girl selling items near the university gate pushed them to me. These cufflinks had 6 blue and white diamonds, finely crafted, not worse than high-end brands, but she sold them to me for only $800. She said she designed them herself. They weren't branded, so they weren't worth much. She sold them to save up money to buy her boyfriend a new phone. Michael looked up and smiled self-deprecatingly. Back then, I thought she was pretty, just a bit silly. During that time, I often walked through that street and always saw her at her stall. If she hadn't had a boyfriend, I would have certainly chased her. Later on, she graduated, and I went abroad. I thought we'd never cross paths again. But a few years later, her work appeared at an international jewelry auction. And eventually, she brought her jewelry brand directly to me. Seeing her walk towards me step by step made my heart flutter again. All these years, my upbringing reminded me that she was taken. I should never disturb her. Until that night when she stumbled into my arms. The night had fallen. The room was dimly lit with a soft yellow glow. Breezes came through the old house's window screens, bringing a gentle coolness. Michael's voice grew softer. That night, you kissed me first, Lily. How could I ever let go after that? I was stunned, listening to everything. Michael was already holding my face, kissing me deeply. Later, I gave birth to a sweet, adorable daughter. Michael always stayed by my side, but I never agreed to his proposals. Not for any particular reason. I simply didn't want to be tied down by a relationship again. Only those who have been confined understand the value of freedom. Plus, liking someone and being married are not the same thing. I didn't dare to get involved easily again. My daughter took my surname and was named Emma. I accompanied Emma from her first babbling words to her first day at school. Unwittingly, another 7 years had passed. People talked about Michael, saying he transformed from a young and handsome guy to the current golden bachelor. Michael always clarified publicly, "I'm not single. I have a girlfriend. I also have a daughter. My daughter is really beautiful." Michael's grandpa, still tough as nails, would often grumble sarcastically, "Yes, you have a girlfriend. You also have a daughter, but you don't have a wife, and your daughter calls you Uncle Michael." Emma always knew Michael was her dad. However, she was very attached to me. When Michael came over, he insisted on spending time with me, being clingier than a child. So Emma would be coaxed away by her grandma. That's why she would pointedly call him Uncle Michael. Uncle Michael, feeling wronged by his daughter, would pitifully come to me at night. He'd embrace me, his tone full of longing. "Lily, you heartless woman, when will you finally give me a proper title?" He had his arm around my waist, and I lazily poked at his abs. "Depends on your effort tonight, and my mood tomorrow." Michael grumbled that I always gave him empty promises. The next second, he leaned in and kissed me even more affectionately. Later, I heard from a friend that Noah was dead. After Sophie lost the baby, she clung to Noah and wouldn't let go. She threatened to marry him, demanding he take care of her for the rest of her life. Noah had grown tired of her and refused to comply, even trying to fire her from the company. Desperate, Sophie fought back by leaking company secrets to a rival and exposing various financial issues. Noah was overwhelmed by her actions, losing several big deals and ultimately watching his company go bankrupt. He came to despise Sophie, and in one of their heated arguments, he accidentally pushed her down the stairs. Feeling hopeless, Noah followed her and jumped too. I merely nodded and said, "Is that so?" with no emotion in my heart. After all these years, hearing Noah's name felt like a distant memory. My friend sighed. "Back in school, you two were so good together. I still remember how Noah would bring you food and tutor you every day. He couldn't be without you. The whole girls' dorm knew how much he loved you. How did such a good person end up so miserably?" I listened quietly, feeling like I was hearing about a stranger. Mom, come play!" My daughter called for me. Michael was playing frisbee with Emma and the dog nearby. I hurriedly ended the call and took the frisbee from my daughter, throwing it far. The dog ran freely, and my daughter laughed happily. Michael glanced over at me. In that look, his eyes were gentle. The years had been kind. Noah's epilogue, asterisk, asterisk. After the breakup, Noah secretly visited Lily 3 times. The first time was at the hospital. He was deeply troubled by Sophie's harassment. Long-term smoking and drinking had taken a toll on his health, and a stomach problem landed him in the hospital. In unbearable pain, Noah instinctively thought of Lily. In the past, if he even slightly frowned after a drinking session, Lily would worry if he was unwell. If he threw up, she would be even more distressed. He always believed that someone who loved him as much as Lily would never leave him. But now, with a bleeding stomach and excruciating pain, even hearing her voice was a luxury. Lily had long deleted him from her Instagram. Luckily, old messages were still there. He obsessively listened to her old voice messages. "Honey, come pick me up after work. By the way, find some time this year to take me to Iceland to see the Northern Lights, okay? Noah, Mr. Noah, happy birthday. No working late tonight. And don't make fun of my ugly cake." Her voice seemed so close to his ears. Playful, sweet, angry. He purposely ignored the later arguing and her tearful questioning if he still loved her. It was only after losing her that he realized he wasn't tired of Lily. But Lily had already become a part of his very being, like oxygen, seemingly unnoticed, but essential. Later, by a twist of fate, he saw Lily again at the obstetrics department of the same hospital. Lily was there for a checkup. Michael was with her the entire time. This well-dressed man attending to a pregnant woman, personally running back and forth. At that moment, Noah mustered all his strength to resist the urge to run to her and beg for forgiveness. To avoid disturbing her, he fled in disgrace. The second time he saw Lily was 3 years later. At that time, his company was in trouble, seeking funds, and he was running everywhere. Passing by a billboard at Times Square, he saw her jewelry ad. She was a designer with both business acumen and artistic talent. In these years, his career had stagnated while she had left him far behind. Noah saw Lily standing under the billboard wearing a bright red dress, perhaps for a business event, posing with reporters. She looked stunning, and he looked miserable, like he could never catch up to her again. Noah silently watched, his eyes turning red. The third time he saw Lily was at an amusement park. The sun shone brightly that day. Michael held their daughter's hand with one hand, holding an umbrella over Lily with the other. All three wore cute matching outfits. The little girl laughed joyfully, first calling Michael Uncle Michael. But then, for some reason, she suddenly changed, calling him Dad. Michael seemed stunned, repeatedly confirming, "Emma, what did you call me? Can you call me that a few more times? Quickly." The little girl was a bit shy, but, with Lily's encouragement, she happily hugged Michael, saying, "I'm calling you Dad. Why don't you want to be my dad and still want to be my Uncle Michael?" Michael looked so happy he could cry. Noah stood far away in an unnoticed corner, watching the scene with jealousy. By that time, his company had already gone bankrupt. Sophie was like a cancer, torturing him to the point of wishing he were dead. He was so jealous. Jealous that Michael had Lily? He regretted it even more. If he hadn't given in to temptation back then, he would have been the one holding Lily's hand now. They would have had kids and worn matching family outfits. If only there were a time machine in the world. Then he could travel back to before he hurt Lily. She would still be his sweetheart. But unfortunately, all of this was just a pipe dream. Sophie came to bother him again. This time, during a quarrel, Sophie threw his old phone out of the window from a 10-story building. The phone shattered into pieces. Noah completely lost it. That phone had Lily's old voice messages. All these years, he never had the heart to delete them. During every sleepless night, he relied on those voices to poison himself. But Sophie destroyed it. In that moment, his sanity was completely devoured. He pushed Sophie away. "Go to hell," he told Sophie. And to himself, as his body arched through the air, in that moment of falling, the howling wind passed by his ears. "Lily, if I'm not here anymore, would you think of me sometimes? Or maybe it's better to forget."